Where do the Oklahoma Sooners stand after the first day of the transfer portal period?
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Sooner Nation? Welcome to Locked On Sooners, and thank you for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. Tune in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $250 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com today. He's Jay Smith. I'm John Williams. The Oklahoma Sooners had a couple of defensive backs enter the transfer portal on the first day of the spring portal window, Pete Schuh and Jocelyn Malaska. Jay, these are two players that really didn't see a whole lot of time at Oklahoma. They did see some snaps on special teams, according to Pro Football Focus, but it's kind of just showing the theme that so far this portal window, it doesn't look like Oklahoma may lose anybody that is going to factor into the too deep.
Yeah, the big names have not jumped into the portal whatsoever. The one thing you're recognizing is that a lot of teams are getting under that 105 number now. I believe going into the portal season, Oklahoma was sitting at like 107 total. And we're still waiting on that house settlement to go down. And so because of that, there's a very good chance Oklahoma, you're going to see a pretty big exodus. I think West Virginia had over 30 players hit the portal already so far. And it's really a lot of these teams and schools are trying to get themselves under that 105 number. So, John, I don't know if we're going to see anything too significant. Now, I've heard rumors, it's been floating around social media that there's some big name players in running back as well as wide receiver that could potentially hit the portal. But until they do, I don't know if it's anything that's going to be too significant as of right now. It looks like we're getting lucky that it's just players that were really good practice bodies and players that really only saw special teams that are heading out the door. But man, this house settlement is going to be critical to understanding what this roster could potentially look like.
It's not going to be surprising if several more players enter the portal, because we know that Oklahoma is going to be targeting players to continue to build that roster and improve their depth. We know that they're going to be going after a tight end. They've already been active in adding Jaden Ott and Jake Mikula. So it's not going to be surprising if the Oklahoma Sooners continue to trade, right? You have to process a couple guys to get a couple more guys in. But what is encouraging right now is you're not seeing at Oklahoma what you're seeing across the country. You're not seeing significant parts of their roster leaving. You're not seeing big time productive players. Like there's a dude from North Carolina, a defensive end that had 7.5 sacks last year. He's in the spring portal. You're not seeing that right now at Oklahoma. You're not seeing guys that had legit big time production for them last year into the portal. Did they have portal losses in the winter window? Yeah, they did. But you're not seeing it coming out of spring ball. And I think that's just a sign of where this roster is and also where this coaching staff is. They're really good at the retention game. Are there people that get processed? Yeah, it's part of where college football is now. Did they have some portal losses in the winter window? I think Lewis Carter is still kind of a loss. But yeah, they have retained significant pieces to their roster, both guys that had NFL aspirations and could have gone into the draft and been drafted in the top 100 picks, as well as guys that would have had opportunities at the P4 level had they left Oklahoma. So we're in a really good place right now, and I think that's just a sign of where things are going with this program under Brent Venables.
Yeah, Oklahoma has to, I mean, no matter what, the team has to get to under that number. But it does sound like it's more so a lot of the walk-ons, because if there was one thing that I did appreciate about Oklahoma was that OK Prep agenda. And you start to notice that they would bring in players from, Oklahoma schools, local, around the way. You would start to see a lot of walk-ons, I guess you could say, that were from Oklahoma. And so because of that, you got pretty excited. Okay, even if the player wasn't like 100% someone that you would naturally see Oklahoma really go and recruit, they were still bringing in some walk-on bodies. And so Brent Venables and that staff had that agenda around OK Preps that made you feel like, okay, they're really focused on recruiting locally, something that we really didn't do a lot of in the past? Well, now that we have these roster limits, I don't expect that to be as big of a deal or as prevalent. I expect, Jim Nagy to have a board and he's looking at his board and say, yes, I would like for us to get OK Preps, but I would like to win national championships. So we're going to focus on players that make the most sense for title aspirations rather than players just because it sounds good to go after locally, especially now that we have that limit. So when you look at the transfer portal additions, and we'll talk about targets in a moment, there are a lot of positions there's about 3 or 4 positions where Oklahoma could definitely use some additional assistance. The question is, will Oklahoma actually start to push players out and pull new players in, or will the focus be to go after, um, to try to develop what you have within? I'm curious to see where we go from there.
I think it's going to be a bit of a balance, right? You've got to have guys that are ready to produce right now. You've got to have guys that improve your roster right now because you're coming off of a 6-7 season. It's your second 6-7 season in 3 years. We expect Oklahoma's going to be better than what they were last year, but you still got to go prove it on the football field. Brent Venables, this coaching staff, they don't really have the luxury of having another down year, or that hot seat's going to get even hotter. Now, Joe Castiglione and Joseph Harris may not feel the same way that the fan base does. At the same time, what have you done? That's what matters. And if you can't go win, it's not going to matter how much everybody likes you. You've got to go win football games. So I think there's an urgency from the program to improve the roster. And I feel like they have the mandate from the fan base, from the administration, from Jim Nagy to go improve the roster. And is it a tough business now? Yeah, it is. There is a business aspect to this too. And it starts at the top with the administration, it goes to the coaching staff, and now it is on the players. You've got to be able to help the team. Now, and this isn't to say that those guys didn't help the team in practice, but you've got to be able to help the team on game days too. And if they can't find guys on the roster that are going to help them on game days, or they feel like are going to develop into guys that can help them on game days, they're going to look to improve. And at defensive back, especially at safety, you're really deep from the top to the guys that you just brought in the 2025 recruiting cycle. Like, that is the deepest position group on the team that's got a really, really bright future. So it was going to be really, really difficult for a guy like Pete Schuh to break into the lineup. It was going to be difficult for a guy like Jocelyn Malaska to break in at cornerback, because even though you have questions at cornerback, you like all of the really young guys that you're developing there, and you're wanting to give them those snaps, unless you have a guy that is a significant upgrade that's ready to go right now and is a cornerback one. You want to give Malik Hawkins, Cortland Guillory, Tristan Haynes, Jeremiah Newcomb. You want to give those Eli Bowen, Jacoby Johnson, those are the guys you want to give those snaps to. You don't need anybody that's going to progress stop. And yeah, that's kind of where Oklahoma's at.
That's what it looked like, even like with Malaska. You got him in from Utah. He's a local kid, and I know he's a really good kid. I've heard nothing but great things about him as a prospect. I mean, he's got the size too. I mean, he's 6'2". He's listed at 170. I know he's bigger than that. So he was definitely at the size you were looking for at corner, but he just could not crack the rotation. It was, it just wasn't one of those things that happened. And so you can tell that Nagy's focus is going after the players that make the most sense towards championships. I'm going to keep repeating that for our fans here as they watch. You got to understand, Oklahoma you guys want them to win championships. So throw out every single piece of evaluation you've had in the past about certain players and focus on the fact that Nagy is going after those nationwide that we have access to, and they're going for championships. So because of that, don't think of the way that you used to think of giving people chances. With those limits, you can't do it anymore. It's going to be all about who's going to get us to the next level, and that's going to be where you can get Brent Venables holding up a trophy.
You've got to improve every aspect of your roster. It can't just be the top tier guys, your starting lineup. You got to improve your depth because your depth is going to help push your starting lineup as well. So all bets are off, man. You've got to go and you got to improve. Who should Oklahoma target in the spring portal window? What positions should they go after? We'll discuss coming up next here on Locked On Sooners. Scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time. With Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and more. Experts ready to help you take your business to the next level. Upwork gives businesses flexibility by connecting them with top freelance talent across multiple industries, including IT, AI, web development, and marketing. Whether you need extra hands for a project or a long-term partner, Upwork makes hiring people more affordable. If you need help with a marketing campaign, Upwork can connect you with a freelance expert who delivered incredible results. Posting a job is free and simple, and within a day with multiple qualified candidates to choose from. Visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That's UPWORK.com, Upwork.com to connect with top talent and grow your business today. Thanks for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So, Jay, the transfer portal window has opened. We're more than a day into it now, and it is full of talented players. Like I mentioned, North Carolina defensive end that had 7.5 sacks last year is someone that, hey, if Oklahoma were in on and they were interested in adding him, this is a guy, Bo Atkinson, who is pretty good. But Jay, where do you think Oklahoma should now focus its efforts after adding Jaden Ott, the running back, and Jake McCullough, the offensive lineman?
To me, if Oklahoma is smart, we're going after the position everybody has been the most concerned about, which is going to be tight end. You're going to get yourself a tight end. You're going to get yourself probably you can get yourself a little bit of linebacker and defensive tackle depth. Maybe go for a kicker. It sounds like kicker has been a concern. I've been seeing some of the local insiders been pointing that out, that they are a little worried about kicker at some point. I just hope we never kick, but whatever, that life happens. You got to kind of put the ball in the air with your foot. So I guess we're going to have to get a kicker or whatnot. Even with the young guys and the 5-star Colts guys we have, it doesn't sound like we're prepared for that. We may need to go ahead after it, but you definitely want to get a tight end. You probably want to get one more wide receiver. I know that there was conversations around the wide receiver from Illinois State, which is kind of funny to me because we're going to play them, first week of the season. So it's always interesting when the upcoming competition loses talent and you go snatch it up. It's like, is he going to be like an insider guy? Is he going to be the dude that gives you like the latest on what they're going to do? Hey, Illinois State's going to run a veer and shoot and throw some and throw a couple of end arounds out there at wide receiver. These are the plays to watch for. That's some advanced scouting. But at the same time, from there, I know that we're going to look at a wide receiver. We probably should go ahead, like I said, grab a tight end. I'm curious to see if we do put some pieces out on defense. I'm wondering, we definitely need a veteran corner. That would be awesome to have. I guess you could say insurance for what you're going to see out of Gentry as well as Eli. So the list goes on at what we hope happens. I just don't know what the plan is for Jim Nagy. It sounds like he's got one actually in place. Heck, you got Jaden Ott very quickly. Like, that was one of the faster commitments. I did not see that coming that fast. Same thing with Jake Michaela, which is kind of weird how you pronounce his name now. We got a pronunciation guide, and that threw me off, but whatever. I'm wondering if Oklahoma already has a couple of players that they've identified. But I know those three positions are probably the ones, wide receiver, tight end, and corner, we definitely need our hands on.
Yeah, so the number one defensive back available right now in the transfer portal, Julian Neal. He's a cornerback, was at Fresno State, had originally transferred to Stanford, but they fired their coach. All bets are off. Open season again. That's a player, 6'2", 200. I know you like the size, Jay. That's a guy that Oklahoma could bring in, and he's got some starting experience at the collegiate level. So that's a guy that could matter. You were going to say something.
Oh no, so yeah, I 100% agree. You definitely need. I would like a big corner just because we're in the SEC. That's one of those. If you get yourself a guy with nice size, there's a very good opportunity that they're going to cause problems, especially if they're fast enough. You can cause problems when it comes to playing some of these SEC teams because I don't think I understand. The SEC ain't no joke, and we learned that last season.
Yeah. So then, as we go to tight end, everybody's favorite tight end prospect from the winter transfer portal window, Tanner Koziol. He originally had gone from Bowling Green to Wisconsin. Well, now he's back in the portal, and that's going to be one of those guys because he had 90 plus catches last season for Bowling Green. He's going to be one of those dudes that's going to be heavily pursued by a lot of people. This is one of those that makes sense to me. I said it a couple weeks ago. If you're going to add a guy, I need a guy with legitimate collegiate production. He's a guy that's got legitimate collegiate production. Will it translate to the SEC? That's going to be the question on everybody's mind when you're making that jump up from the group of five to the power four. That's going to be the case. At the same time, he's got a really, really good floor to work from. If you can add a guy like him or the Cal tight end, Jack Edries, that's another one that makes a lot of sense too.
Yeah, the Jack Edries one is interesting. When I saw that he's actually doing a visit to Texas, and we know how desperate they really are for tight ends right now. Yeah, you can go ahead and get them at home and down. They're pretty desperate on that, and especially in Sarkisian's offense, he has a higher level of desperation for really good tight end play in order for that offense to really like hum. And I don't honestly believe that we have an opportunity to steal that away from them because tight ends used so much by them. I don't think tight ends are used enough in the Ben Arbuckle offense to where we would be able to snatch him away from someone like Texas who uses tight ends more often. I get it, Sooner fans. You want a tight end. I am 100% in the same boat. I think that is going to be the most critical component to just this team because we're so used to having good tight end play. But when you're going up against a school who uses tight ends like crazy, and you got an offensive guy who doesn't use tight ends as much, I don't know if you can steal them away. That's where the struggle is going to come in.
Right. And that's going to be the difficult recruiting pitch for any tight end that they go after is what's the plan? How are you going to use me? Because the Washington State production, the Washington State usage was not great. That doesn't mean that Ben Arbuckle can't figure out a way to use the tight end or doesn't have a plan to use the tight end because I'm sure he does. It's just a matter of do I have the guy that I would need to have to be able to use the tight end a lot? That's not been the case. So if they were to get a guy like Tanner Koziol, I'm sure that there would be aspects of the offense that would get him heavily involved in the offense because we know that they're going to throw the ball a bunch, they're going to run the ball a bunch, but you're going to get a guy like that, you're going to get him involved because he's talented. He's good enough to be involved. It's like if you have a Mark Andrews and your offense doesn't have a way of using a Mark Andrews, then you have a bad offense. That's always my contention when you have really good players but can't figure out how to use them. It's not on the player. That's on the offense. That's on the offensive coordinator, whether it's the NBA, college basketball, college football, it doesn't matter. If you cannot figure out a way to use really good players in your offense, that's an offensive problem, not a player problem.
Yeah, I agree. You could there's enough talent in at the tight end play to where if you scheme it properly, they're going to make something happen. Again, I know Sooner fans are going to be happy at this, but Bowershot will be really good in this offense. He would probably flourish in this offense because he's not the focal point. You don't want your tight end, especially one that's very inexperienced, to be the dude that has to be the dude. Now that, there's a potential for Giovanni Gibson to come back by week 1, and that to me is probably one of the better things that we've got going on for ourselves. While we also brought in a substantial amount of transfers, not having to force your tight end to be that focal point to me is a saving grace. But at the same time, like you said, you got to be able to scheme one of them open, and you should be able to with no problem with the way that Ben Arbuckle plays the game. So I'm not as stressed when it comes to what we go after in the portal. I truly believe that, you probably can make Huggins or Carson Kent work for you, and that should be strong enough at that spot. But everybody wants that game breaker. They want someone that's going to be the next Mark Andrews. And I'm going to tell y'all now, I don't see it in the portal right now. Unfortunately, we'll have to see what it looks like in the next few weeks, or next few days, because the portal just opened. So we've only got 1 day in. But I think Oklahoma has definitely probably identified who they want.
I don't need a Mark Andrews. I just need like a James Hanna. I need somebody who, when he's throwing the football, is going to take advantage of it. And listen, the Bauer Sharp thing, he was perfectly solid. You did not intend for him to be your number one option in the offense. You intended him to be like your fourth or fifth option in the offense last year. And injuries, the way that they worked out, he was your number one option. And he got put in a lot of situations where he was overexposed and overextended. It's the way it goes. Yep. Just find me somebody who, when they get the ball thrown their way, they can catch it and make something happen with it after the catch. That's all I need. I need them to take advantage of the space that's going to be created by guys like Deion Burks and Isaiah Satania. When they're working downfield, that tight end is going to have opportunities over the middle to make plays. When they get those opportunities, make the play, make something happen with the ball. We'll see what they do, man. Oklahoma's going to have options. They're going to be aggressive. We know Jim Nackey and Brent Venables have said publicly that we are going to be aggressive. We're going to improve this roster. So look for them to continue to do that. It may be in the next couple of days. It may take weeks for all of this to really settle and solidify. You have as long as you need now. Once a player's in the portal, you can continue to recruit them until they've signed somewhere else. That there's no cap on that. Even though the portal window will close on the 25th, recruiting will still happen after that date. So We'll see what Oklahoma does. Oklahoma has made some moves on the court, also with their front office staff with Jim Nagy. We'll discuss that coming up next here on Locked On Sooners.
NBA playoffs are almost here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get into the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if you win that bet. So for me, of course, my Oklahoma City Thunder are looking very good going into the 1 seed, but I like to jump in there after the game tips off. I want to be able to jump in and get some of those live props and be able to combine them into a same game parlay for a chance to win some pretty big money. FanDuel makes it super easy on the app. It's very fast to be able to make those selections, 60 seconds or less. I'm in and out the door. So make sure you don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today.
Thanks again for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So, Jay, surprising, we have another addition to Jim Nagy's staff. That's one Kale Pearson. He is going to be the director of high school recruiting for the Oklahoma Sooners. Now, he is a Union high school graduate, went to Air Force, played a little quarterback there, was also their general manager and director of recruiting at the Air Force Academy.
Yeah, he graduated from Union back in 2011, so he has ties, won 3 state championships, has ties here into the Oklahoma area, was at Air Force doing some work there as their general manager, like I said, director of recruiting and NFL liaison. It's intriguing to see that not only are they looking at guys that are really good at the national rank, but they're going for guys that have some experience working at other schools with still ties to the state of Oklahoma. And so I like the idea of a person like a Kale Pearson, because what Oklahoma wants to do is, I mentioned it in the first segment, we still want to have an OK prep agenda, but we want to make sure that we're going after the players that make the most sense for what we're trying to do here at Oklahoma, which is what? Win championships, guys. You want to make sure that you're going after players that make the most sense for this program to be competing for titles. And I think Kale's going to do a really good job for him, being an NFL liaison, working at Air Force Academy the last 4 years, and being able to, really zero in on the type of players we could use. I mean, him, Taylor Reed, as well as Nagy, and I know that we're going to add more to the staff. I think they've got 2 more hires that's expected to come down the line to build out this, internal scouting and liaison type roles. Oklahoma's doing some stuff that I guess you could say is kind of shocked your boy. I'm not even gonna lie.
I like this addition. You're taking a guy that's got kind of high level recruiting experience at the collegiate level, and you're taking him from a general manager, director of recruiting job, and then you're pulling him to Oklahoma. When you're Air Force, you're not recruiting necessarily the 5-star guys. You're not always recruiting the 4-star guys. You're recruiting the guys that are going to be, one, system fits for what Air Force wants to do, but two, you're looking for kind of those hidden gems, and you have to have a knack for that. Now, is Air Force's success all that great? No. But again, it's difficult to recruit to a place like Air Force. You got to have guys that want to go into the Air Force to come play there. That makes it a challenge. And so I think this is going to be a good hire for Oklahoma. Jim Nagy hasn't missed yet. This is going to be a really good staff. On the basketball court, the Oklahoma Sooners are hiring or are set to hire, according to reports out there. John Rothstein of CBS Sports reported that Oklahoma was hiring St. Joe's assistant coach Justin Scott, which, again, I think that's a really good hire for Oklahoma, not only because of the player that's connected to Scott, but I was telling you this before, just I like the idea of Oklahoma basketball going after guys that are from basketball primary schools, places that treat basketball like we treat football.
Yeah, those are the type of players that you really would like on your roster. I love how you kind of pointed that out when we talked. It's go for players that play at schools that treat their basketball program like we treat our football program. Like it's the priority. So like a St. John's, a St. Joe's, those type of schools, a Pepperdine. We've seen Pepperdine make some runs in the tournament. Gonzaga, if you can steal a dude from Gonzaga, I mean, you're killing. You're put yourself, honestly, you may put yourself on a radar where schools will need to come after you. But you want to get those type of players that are focused on basketball, that will resonate for what you're trying to get going. And so I think that's huge that Oklahoma's adding a coach like Justin Scott from St. Joseph to be on be an assistant, because then he'll be one of those coaches that can help with identifying that type of talent that would probably focus and go to a school that's basketball only. And again, there's an impeding transfer that's potentially coming down the line from his stepson. You hope that that's something that actually works out for you in your favor. But at the same time, going after players that are, like I said, that are big in, a basketball school, Porter Moser is kind of cooking a little bit in the portal right now.
Yeah, so Jamie Shaw issued a prediction favoring the Oklahoma Sooners for Xzayvier Brown, the St. Joe's point guard, who's been around for a while, and he's a very experienced player. He averaged 17 points per game for St. Joe's last year. He was an all-10 or all-Atlantic 10 selection, 5.2 rebounds, 4.3 assists. So he does everything well. He's not just a point guard. He's a guy that will rebound, he will defend, he will distribute the basketball. And I think this potentially could be a really, really good fit for Oklahoma. Porter Moser likes to have a couple guys that can handle the basketball in his offense, but it also allows a guy like Nigel Pack, who's a fantastic three-point shooter, over 41% for his career. It allows him to play a little bit more off ball and do more catch and shoot, which I think would be very beneficial for him, because when he does have the opportunity to shoot, he's going to knock him down with great regularity. If you bring in an experienced dude like Xzayvier Brown and let him run the point some as well, then you have, I think, a little bit better balance in your offense. Plus, they're going to have the opportunity to have a visit with Alabama big man Darian Reed too. So Porter Moser is cooking. In years past, as they've tried to retool this roster, they've been going to the mid-majors and really attacking there, but not the mid-majors that are like the Atlantic 10. To me, Atlantic 10 basketball, that is, it's mid-major, but it's not quite the same mid-major as some of those schools that Oklahoma was recruiting in years past to build up their roster. So I'm encouraged by Xzayvier Brown. If they can land him, that's a big addition for the Sooners. Again, a guy with production, a guy with experience that can handle the basketball and helps replenish what you lost with Jeremiah Fears and Duke Miles exiting.
Yeah. You want to get you some players that will continue. Hey, shout out to our guy, Trey Young, as he's the assistant GM. It sounds like he's helping go after the players that make the most sense for Oklahoma's success.
Yeah. And listen, shout out to also Porter Moser, man. Just as things were like winding down and everything was looking like we needed to make a coaching change, the dude just rallied the troops and coached himself off the hot seat. And he's done nothing but keep that momentum. It's amazing what making the NCAA tournament will do for you. It's amazing what winning a game in the SEC tournament will do for you. He's got so much positive momentum going right now. Now just build on that, continue to build this roster in a way that's going to make you, competitive this year, next year, and beyond. And they've got some young guys coming in, in that recruiting class that are going to make them competitive, not just next year, but, for the next several years. You just got to find some veterans to help kind of bridge the gap a little bit. And Porter Moser's done a great job of that. And that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Sooners. Thanks so much for tuning in, being a part of the show. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. So hit that subscribe button and that notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop. Now, for your second listen of the day, go check out the Locked On NFL Draft Show with Damian Parsons and Keith Sanchez. As your favorite collegiate players get ready for the next level, get the latest draft rankings, rumors, and news every day. Find Locked On NFL Draft on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. Follow Jay at Unfair Sports. Go check out his channel, Unfair Sports, over on YouTube as well. Follow me at John 9 Williams. You can read my work covering the Sooners over at SoonersWire.com. The show is at Locked On Sooners on all of your favorite social media platforms. But until next time, he's Jay Smith. I'm John Williams. We'll talk to you then. Boomer
Sooner. Need to go ahead and hire you too, John. That would actually be a really good hire. Make some magic happen there.
I'll take anything. Let's go. Let's work.
Let's go.